The clock is ticking on climate change, and we are almost out of time. According to a new report released on Sunday, we have just 12 years to make massive change to global energy infrastructure in order to prevent the worst of climate change. The worst. In fact, according to this is a report by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, who released a 700-page report on Sunday. They said, quote, "There is no documented historical precedent for the action needed at this moment." So this, they're not pulling any punches in this report, and reading it is just, it is disastrous. Now the report makes clear that the warming world will be worse for people, humankind, in the forms of famine, disease, economic tolls, and of course refugee crisis. Now, it also makes clear that there is a big difference between the devastation from 1.5 degrees Celsius, what's considered the moderate level of average warming, and 2 degrees Celsius, in which we are barreling towards. Now, Valerie Masson-Delmotte, co-chair of the IPCC Working Group 1, at a press conference said, quote, "It's very clear that a half a degree matters." Now, the reason I talk about half a degree is because, look, that's where we're trying to get to. We're trying to prevent it from going over 2 degrees Celsius. It hasn't hit 1.5 yet. And 1.5 is going to be bad enough. So this is what we're supposed to hit if we stayed as part of the Paris Climate Agreement. Now, under that agreement, nations set a goal of limiting to about 2 degrees increase in global average temperatures, with ambitions of a stricter limit of 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit or 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming. Now, the UN asked the IPCC to figure out what it would take to hit the 1.5 degree target and what's in store for the world if we did end up doing that. Remember, that is the best case scenario, and we are nowhere near it. Now, the team pooled more than 6,000 scientific publications, drew contributions from 132 authors, and had more than 1,000 scientists review the findings. Now, this report, again, this is absolutely disastrous. They said that staying at or below 1.5 degrees Celsius requires slashing global greenhouse emissions 45% below 2010 levels by 2030 and reaching net zero by 2050. Now, in practical terms, that means reducing our coal consumption by at least a third, and it demands a vast scale-up of emerging technologies, such as those that remove carbon dioxide directly from the air, all in the window of the next 12 years. So not only do we have to cut coal consumption by a third worldwide, but also have to suck all the carbon out of the air if we're going to hit 1.5 degrees Celsius. Wow. Not only that, but the report says devastation is coming. And they say that the additional sea level rise of going from 1.5 degrees Celsius to 2 degrees would put 10 million people at risk of flooding. So, wow. And that's property damage from flooding. Now, another finding of this report says that for every fraction of a degree that we can take off the thermostat, will pay dividends across the economy. In short, they say things will get worse, and look, we can avoid some of the worst case scenarios. However, at this point in time, the easiest options are off the table. We are now in, we need a fucking Hail Mary, and we need it now. So to summarize, there is no way that we can hit the target without actually removing carbon from the air. We've already put too much in there. We've got to suck some of it out. And that cutting greenhouse gas emissions sharply enough to meet the ambitious climate mitigation goal will require a massive global shift in energy use. Now, Jim Skea, co-chair of the IPCC Working Group 3, also said, quote, "We have not identified any pathways that get to 1.5 degrees Celsius without carbon dioxide removal. We have to do it now. We don't have a choice. We're not going to hit it unless we do." Now, carbon dioxide removal, they explain, can take the form of direct air capture, where machines can scrub carbon dioxide from the air. It can also come from using bioenergy with carbon capture and sequestration, where plants pull carbon dioxide from the air and scrubbers prevent the carbon from the resulting biofuels from reaching the sky. Land use, from how we graze cattle to how we plant forests, is also a critical tactic for removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. In the worst case scenario, we may have to draw down upwards of 1,000 gigatons of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere by the year 2100. Now, what happens if we don't? Well, I alluded to it earlier, where there's going to be a lot of costs if we don't do this. Well, let me kind of go into the details of what that means. Basically, we would have extreme heat and storms, as well as related outcomes like disease and poverty that are projected to rise with temperatures. Climate-related risks to health, livelihoods, food security, water supply, human security, and economic growth are projected to increase with global warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius and increase further with 2 degrees Celsius, according to the report. So, rising oceans, places that no longer can support life, which means mass migration. You think we have an immigration problem now? No. Imagine when we start having climate refugees, which is going to be even worse, because look, a lot of these people will no longer be able to grow food. It'll be just simply too hot, the water will evaporate. And coastal flooding, Florida is going to be underwater by 2100 if we don't do anything. And actually, probably even if we do something, Florida, gone. There goes the coastline. It's going to be a disaster. Now, if we are able to draw down some of this climate change, there are some positive results. Some of them include improved air quality, resulting from projected reductions in non-CO2 emissions, would provide direct and immediate population health benefits in all 1.5 degree Celsius model pathways, according to the authors. Now, that, of course, is very detailed, a lot of scientific jargon in there, but basically it's saying we need to do something quick, which is what I've been saying all along. Now, the question is, will the media talk about this? Will other outlets cover this vigorously? I don't think so. I don't think MSNBC is going to talk about it all that much. I don't think CNN is going to talk about it. Definitely not Fox News. But this is a disastrous study. This is a disastrous path that we are heading on in the United States. And not just in the United States, but the world. We are not anywhere close to hitting 1.5 degrees Celsius. We are heading towards 2. We are heading and beyond. This is a global disaster, catastrophe waiting to happen. And unfortunately, like with all things that are super important, are going to get drowned out by ridiculous crap. And that is what's happening today. And so I don't have any faith in the media, which sucks because we need to do something. We need to do something now. The easy options are off the table. We need massive investment in clean energy. We need a Marshall Plan for our energy grid so that we can have a green economy. It is a Green New Deal is what we need. And until people who actually give a shit about the environment get into power, we are sadly not going to have that. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/independent. TYT Nation.